couple of days ago, specifically Monday evening, there was a bishop in Australia, in Sydney, who was attacked by a 16-year-old boy from Iraq. And this incident have become viral in the last couple of days. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, have already encountered it. There are people who commented on it fairly, and there are people who unfairly used this incident as an opportunity to twist certain realities and misrepresent a lot of things. And we're going to comment on that today. But before I talk about people who commented on it, I want to first say a few words on the incidents. First and foremost, we, as Muslims generally, we condemn these type of behavior and these types of attack in the strongest and unequivocal words possible. This type of behavior is shameful, and it's not in any way, shape, or form a behavior that a Muslim should do, or anyone that has anything to do with Islam would do, because the teachings of Islam are explicit and clear, and are condemning of such behavior. For example, you have the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal explicitly mentions, chapter 60, verse 8 of the Quran. Allah Azza wa Jal does not forbid you from those who don't fight you and those who don't get you out of your homes, from being good and righteous towards them, because Allah loves those who are just and righteous. So these are the Islamic teachings. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, and now in war, we're talking in war, whenever he appointed a leader in war, he said to him that you cannot kill women or children, old people, or monks or priests or people of worship. He said, "Wala ashab al-sawmi'," specifically the people of worship. And I'm talking in war. Now, you can imagine outside war, you can imagine these normal kind of days and situation. Of course, you're not allowed to do anything remotely related to this. In fact, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever kills a non-combatant, he's not going to smell the fragrance of paradise. And this is an explicit kind of teaching of Islam, regardless of some people who already have misrepresentations of Islamic belief and think of this is a good behavior and Muslims believe that they should do this and all of that, which we're going to talk about in a minute. But first, I'm just offering these words of clear condemnation and sadness for these types of events that took place. Because the first and foremost, people need to understand that as a Muslim, we have more damage and anger when these types of attack happen than anyone else. And that might surprise some people, but this is the truth. People who like talk about Islam in general, or try to tell people about Islam and the religion and its teachings, for example, like I do on my channel, get the most frustration of these types of events, because in the end, an event like this happening from a 16-year-old kid ends up making all of these negative view or image or publicity, because it's misused by multiple media outlets and different individuals. So that actually frustrates us, because all of the work that we're doing of talking about Islam and how beautiful it is as a religion and how it teaches these good practices of being good to the people around you, then we get all of this negative publicity. That's number one. Number two, the lay Muslims, that's just the general public, they end up dealing with the aftermath of this, right? They end up being treated differently whenever they're seen. They end up people have prejudices against them just because of their religion, because a 16-year-old boy somewhere did something, which is, as we said, we highly condemn. But this is the thing, is that we have the most amount of problematic feelings when we see such things. So we would hate this more than anyone else would hate to see something like this. And I don't want anyone to think anything other than that. So we do condemn this in the strongest words possible. But I want to also say that we see this getting like this massive amount of publicity, and people are talking about this incident and what took place, rightly so, which I believe this is how it should be. But I want to also highlight how this is not the case when this type of behavior, the exact type of behavior happens, but it happens to a Muslim, someone who speaks about Islam. We have a very clear example in America, Sheikh Uthman, who's got a channel as well, and he engages with people about religion, and he leads people in prayer in the mosque, etc. And he was attacked. He was attacked. He was actually stabbed, and not by a 16-year-old child or kid or boy or whatever term you want to use for him. He was attacked by a grown man, and for religiously motivated reasons. He was stabbed, and you can see the video over here. You can watch the video for yourself and watch the whole incident and what took place. And these types of incidents taking place do not take the level of media coverage like this event that took place with the bishop. It should, but it doesn't. And I want to highlight that these bad apples exist in every community, in every society. And an example, since we're talking about Australia, you can look at New Zealand, the incident that took place just like in the last few years. This individual who went into a mosque and he literally killed people online, and he was live streaming it on Facebook. That's why it got so much publicity, because in general it wouldn't get that amount of publicity, but it did because the individual was live streaming it on Facebook. So when these types of events happens to Muslims, we do not see the same type of media coverage as it should be for everyone or anyone. Whenever an incident like this takes place, this should be covered by the media equally for all different people. That's something that is ought to be highlighted and spoken about. I'm going to now address, because we're talking about bad apples existing, and I just mentioned this case of the person in New Zealand and what he did, which is like killed over 50 people or something that time, using guns. And you see, this is an example. And he had a manifesto where he mentions the Crusades, and this was a religiously motivated thing. If you want to talk about the 16-year-old kid and say that it was a religiously motivated attack. Now, there are people, like, for example, here, I'm going to comment on right now, the PBD podcast or whatever the name of the podcast is. You had these people, they jumped on the first opportunity to use this event and misrepresent Islamic teachings and say, like, some of the most ridiculous comments that I've heard, the most disingenuous, intellectually lacking comments that I've heard in a while. So I'm going to show you right now what these individuals have said, and I'm going to comment on the statements that they made, because these types of individuals are part of the reasons that they are the ones who propagate more negative publicity, and they're not challenged because they're sitting with each other, all of them agreeing on their biases, mentioning lies and incorrect statements, and they wouldn't correct each other because there's no one there who disagrees with them. But in this case, we will disagree with them because they said this on a public platform, and we have our own platforms, and we are going to comment and show how ridiculous some of these statements are. So let me get right into it and show the first person and what he says.
This 16-year-old boy who they believe to have said Allah Akbar.
That's what Australians are messaging me that was said.
I'm just going to come out and say, typically, rarely, nothing good happens after you hear Allah Akbar. It's never like flowers and roses and bunny rabbits. It's stabbings and shootings and bombs. But no disrespect. That's kind of what it's associated with.
Now you see this individual here, and you see how ridiculous these claims are. Like, he's going to pretend, and he's going to completely ignore what is the meaning of the word Allahu Akbar, and he's going to pretend as if like this has no meaning or something, and he's going to go on to say, you don't see this and you don't see that. What does the word even mean? It means God is greater. God is greater than everything. God is greater than anything. That's essentially what it means. And he's here saying you never hear that word and see something peaceful. You've never seen anything. This is a clear evidence that you have no clue about Muslims. You got no idea what these people do. Every day Muslims pray five times. And during each prayer, from each movement, they move from one to the other movement, they say that word, Allahu Akbar. Whenever they're making the call of prayer, they mention the same word. Whenever there's a call of prayer, and there's always five call of prayers during the day in each mosque, you repeatedly hear this word as a Muslim, because it means God is greater. So if this is what the word means, and you hear it every day almost as a Muslim, and if anyone who's like been around any Muslims or been in any Muslim countries, he would hear it every day, and he's not going to see any of this nonsense that this guy is saying. This just shows us how much illiterate these people are when it comes to the teachings of Islam. Okay, let's see what he says.
But this 16-year-old, by the way, there's a history on this guy. He was released for good behavior after a previous knife stabbing crime in January.
Where? In Australia?
In Australia.
Oh, great.
So there is a conversation, especially what's going on in Israel, about allegedly there's 30,000 dead. They say that 13 to 15,000 of them have been actual Hamas. I'm sort of correlating the two. But my question is this. They say that women and children have been killed. As if a woman can't be a terrorist, as if a 16-year-old can't be a part of Hamas. We're seeing this play out in real life. And I have moderate friends who are Islamic, Jewish, Christian. We have to figure out a way to eliminate the radicals and the extremists from society and bring them back to moderate lifestyle.
Now, you see, I don't know how these people are allowed to speak like this on a platform like YouTube. This is like the most ridiculous type of statements that I've heard. Like, I don't know how this person spoke and said these words around three other human beings, which are supposed to have an intellect, and they didn't make any comment about what he just said. This individual has just said that this kid, with a 16-year-old kid that did this incident in Sydney, and then he went on to first make up a stat from his own pocket and made up, according to madeupstats.com. And then he started saying that 13 to 15,000 of the people, 30,000 people were killed in Gaza. He's saying 13 to 15,000 of them were Hamas. According to whose stats? iMediaTop.com. This is the stats that he's using, because this is not what the UN said, or no one said. And you cannot use the IDF stats because they're not there counting the casualties anyways. So they can give you which political alignment or lack thereof these people had when they died. So it's such a ridiculous statement that is just going on and moving. But this is not the problem. The biggest, the true problem is what he goes on to say. He says that essentially what he's trying to say is, if a 16-year-old kid did an event somewhere in the world out of billions of people, now this legitimizes, in his worldview, to kill women and children. Because you know what? There is one kid who did it somewhere, who had already previous attempts and crimes done like this, which shows that he's got problems already. This is a violent individual who's already got problems, and he was convicted of previous crimes, even though he's still a kid. Now he is saying, if one kid is like this, who's got issues, who's got a history of these types of violences, this now legitimizes that we can do the same thing to kids in general in so-called Israel, the terrorist state of his, because he's a Zionist, is allowed to do this behavior. It's allowed now to kill women and children. When you have 30,000 of those who were killed, 70% of them or more probably, according to the UN, if I remember, were women and children. So he's saying, you know what, we're just going to pretend these are Hamas, according to his made-up stats.com, and then we're going to say it's okay to kill women and children because, you know what, they got this incident a couple of days ago of this kid who's already got a history of violence, of attacking this bishop. Do you see how crazy, how insane this statement is? This individual shouldn't even be allowed to speak online. With all honesty and due respect, there's no human being who would ever utter such a statement. It's okay that you do eliminate radical people. So, let's do that to children. When we talk about children, we're talking all the way from babies to 16 years old. He's trying to justify the acts and the thousands of children that were killed in Gaza using this incident. What a ridiculous, disingenuous behavior. I've never seen something so insane in my life. And these people literally shouldn't be allowed to speak even on these platforms, because I don't know if this kind of speech is allowed, then what speech isn't allowed?
As much as I agree with you on the kids, I do agree, but there's also a bigger context here, and that is Western values. You can't move here from countries that you escaped and fled because you don't agree with what they stand for, and then you escape to America or Canada or to Australia or to Norway or to Sweden or to Netherlands, and then try to insinuate and push your values, Sharia law, into Western society. That's what they're talking about, a clash of cultures. You came to these societies for a reason. Appreciate that. And that's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Now, you have this individual again. Look what he's saying. He's saying, look how these disingenuous this type of comments are. He's saying these people have moved from these countries because they don't like him. He's just pretending as if this is the case. And we've got this kid as an example. Let's use his country as an example. He's a kid from Iraq. Now, those Iraqis who left Iraq and traveled all over those, why did they do it? Because you had America, your country, and you had the British saying what? His weapons of mass destruction going there. Even though there's protests, millions of people complaining, they went and they killed the people there, and they destroyed the country. They completely destroyed it, took its resources, and they left. And these people end up coming to your country, not because they don't like the country, as you're trying to claim and pretend. It's because they're forced to come, because you've already destroyed theirs. So, and now you don't only have you destroyed theirs, but you say when you come, you have to act like me. Now, when you come, you cannot be your own beliefs and your own religious beliefs and behavior. You have now to become a clone of me and my values. I have to also intellectually dominate you and colonize you. Not only am I going to destroy your country and take your resources, but I'm also going to tell you that now you have to become an exact virgin. This is essentially what the Quran is saying about these people. وَلَن تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُم. That the Jews and the Christians are not going to be pleased with you until you follow their own way, you follow their own beliefs. They're not going to be pleased with you until you become a clone of them. So they will come destroy your country and then pretend, you know what, these people come because they don't like their countries. Look at these people coming. Why are they coming? Because until this day, countries like America and governments like America still involve their business in the Middle East. Until this day, it's happening. And you got the prime example that we're just talking about. Gaza is an example. How the US is the reason Israel today is allowed to do everything is allowed to do. Not only the US, but the whole of Europe, essentially, that are condoning and allowing and completely ignoring this type of behavior taking place. You have jets sent from the UK and from the US protecting the air in Gaza. So if you're involving in the Middle East and you're still, until this day, let alone everything you've done in the past, Don't come and pretend that people living there, they don't like their countries. It's your involvement and destruction of these countries that led these people to come there. And now you're complaining about certain behavior that these people are doing, or they're not acting like me. You know what? They're Sharia. He means they're praying. You know what? They go into the mosque. You know, they're actually having children, unlike other people, and they're envious of that. That's why you'll see them in this podcast. They're just repeating, "Oh, Christians, why don't you have kids too?" You know, you're just envious of how Muslims are behaving and the things that they're doing. And they try to honestly, this is such a disgusting behavior. It's a disgusting behavior when you see someone using such incident to try to push forward these narratives, the narratives that they probably had for a long time. And they're trying to use the incident to justify it. And we're going to see now this ridiculous things that they're about to say and the ridiculous video that you're going to play.
You've interviewed a guy who I think one time left ISIS, left Al-Qaeda, I believe, and came back to a moderate lifestyle. You've interviewed a few people.
Yeah, I mean, listen, but even the debate that we did the other day with a couple Muslims that were here, and, you know, we had a couple Christian guys that were here also talking, giving their perspective. The Sharia law was one of the conversations that if a country is being ran under Sharia law, you would be killed because that's what the laws are.
Now you see this person who's who's acting in the discussion that he's talking about, where they brought two Muslims and and two Christians. He's acting as if he is a moderate individual, and he was like completely unbiased. And now what he's doing is he misusing a statement, misapplying it, mischaracterizing it, and pretending as if they said something they didn't. What happened in that discussion, which you're welcome to watch yourself, they were talking about first a Sharia state, where you have a Sharia Islamic government. You have laws applied by the government, by the state, because there is no vigilantism in Islam where a human being can go and do it himself. This is not allowed in Islam under any circumstances, that these punitive laws, punishments are applied by individuals. It's applied in court after due process and evidence is established. So he's talking in this situation, in an idea to do with an apostate, someone who leaves the religion, and that punishment takes place after due process and the court system, and him breaking the law in that country, which is a country that is run by Sharia. And he's saying that these people were saying it's okay that you basically kill infidels or non-believers under Sharia. He completely miscategorized something to do with apostates that is done, punishment that is done by the state, not done by the people, and after due process to do with an apostate. And he started applying it on anyone who's not a Muslim to begin with, not an apostate, someone who accepted and left, but everyone who's non-Muslim. And according to Sharia, this is what they said. How disingenuous do you have to be to say such a statement? I know, look, you're an intelligent person. Allegedly, you're an intelligent. I don't know you personally, but that's what people say. As an intelligent person, I don't think you've missed that this is what they said. But it seems like that you are twisting their words to kind of push a certain narrative that you have. Okay, let's see that video that you're about to.
And here's one of the most open, honest guys that's being interviewed, and the interviewer's almost blown away. This is in Canada, I believe.
Yeah.
He says here, one of the most honest, open guys. Yeah, let's hear what he has to say.
And he's like, wow, I actually appreciate the fact that you're being straight up honest. Watch this right here. Go ahead, Rob.
What happened to a gay couple in Palestine, sir?
What?
What would happen to a gay couple in Gaza?
Executed according to Islamic law. Islam doesn't endorse gayism. Islam doesn't endorse homosexuality. Just like Canada doesn't endorse a lot of things.
So would you like to see Sharia?
Now, look, the first thing he says, look at this guy, how angry he looks. How, I don't even know if this even a Muslim or not, that some guy, they paid $100 and say, come, just repeat these certain words, act like you're angry and show what he says, like the most honest person, the PPD, this is what he's saying. And he probably some random guy on the street that no one knows who this guy is. And look, the first thing he says is what will happen to them in Palestine. What are you talking about in Palestine? This guy says under Sharia law. What Sharia law is being applied in Palestine? Which government is being allowed to practice its own rights in Palestine today, in Gaza? These people are being bombed day and night. What kind of ridiculous statements are you making? Okay, look at what he's about to say.
Sharia law in Canada replace Canadian law?
At some point it will. You know, because we have families, we are making babies. You're not. Wow. Your population is going down the slump, right? And by 2060, according to Pew Research Institute, your research, by 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then? Actually, are you going to oppose Sharia even then?
Well, you know what? I'm very appreciative of the honesty. We don't usually get that.
One day we can.
Yeah, you don't usually get that because there's no Muslim on earth is walking around saying, we're going to take over, we're going to do this. This is just a narrative that you guys are putting in place to appease your own prejudice and ego and pretend that this is the case. And this individual, clearly, this guy is just saying some. Okay, you never find a Muslim, a normal Muslim, a layman practicing Muslim walking in the streets who will tell you such thing. And what they will end up saying is this, is that, look, this guy is being honest. Why would they say this guy is being honest? Because they know the average Muslim will not say this. And because they know the average Muslim will not say this, now they will pretend that this guy is the one who's being honest, while the average Muslim and the rest of Muslims are people who are hiding the truth. Why? Because this guy affirms their narrative. Therefore, now he is the one who's honest, rather than saying this is the guy who's like clearly has got mental issues and is angry for some reason and saying some ridiculous statements that is not backed up by Islam in any way, shape, or form. And even if Muslim became allegedly a majority in a country, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're going to take over the government? If you become a majority in a country, does not correlate or necessitate that therefore now your laws are the ones that are going to be applied in the country. So even that argument makes zero sense. But they just use this individual who's angry, clearly unhappy, because it just affirms their narrative.
We have a Muslim majority nation here in Canada, right in your face.
Right.
Look, who speaks like this? Like if anyone watches this video, if you've seen any Muslim in your life, have you seen any Muslim speaking like this? Like, what a kind of a ridiculous behavior. And I'm honestly, I can just bring a Christian guy from the street now and make him wear a cross, pay him $100 and make him say the most ridiculous things. And then hold the mic and say, look, this guy is a Christian. This is what Christianity is. Look, this guy is saying the truth. Anyone could do this and pretend as if this is a representative. This is the kid. This is the problem. You've got a kid who's 16 years old who did something wrong in Australia, and you've got this person here. And then you've got these people applying that and projecting it on 2 billion people in the world. Instead of saying that these people are like, you have 2 billion people. You know, if you have 2 billion people, of course you're going to have thousands of people who've got some issues. From 2 billion people, which are not even close to 1%, these thousands. But you'll end up having them because you have 2 billion people. You have a large number of people. Of course, you're going to have bad people in the end. But what these people end up doing, they use 2 individuals in this whole talk of theirs to paint that, okay, these are all Muslims. This is what all Muslims believe. This is their plan. This is what they're planning to do. And you know what? This person is the one being honest, while the rest of the 2 billion people are lying. So it's not that the rest of the people are saying the truth. No, but one person is the one who is apparently a spokesperson for the whole population of Muslims and Islam.
I think this is just the atrocity of mankind, and it's broken men living in a broken world. And you've got people that are radicalized by a certain faith, and that faith has at its core the extinction of others. Anything that is an infidel is subject to extinction. That's the way it is.
Now, you see this individual, you see what he's saying there. He is saying that it's an Islamic teaching. He's trying to say that this is a religion. You've got people who are radicalized, and religion at its core. He's claiming that's a fundamental teaching in Islam to get rid and completely annihilate anyone who is not of your own faith. That's what he calls an infidel in in the statements that he was just making. He's claiming that in Islam, if you are an infidel, you ought to be exterminated. Now, the thing is this: what evidences have he provided? What text has he quoted from the Quran or from the prophetic teaching to kind of substantiate these types of egregious, ridiculous claims that he's making right now? Absolutely nothing. And he's sitting around 3 other people, and they're just listening with their biases, completely agreeing with what he's saying. Because, yeah, of course, we've got an opportunity now. Some event took place. A kid ended up doing this attack. So, you know what? Let's use this opportunity, and we'll just say whatever we want to say, regardless of it being true or not. And I want just people who have like a bit of common sense to just think about what this guy just said. Imagine now, do you know how many Muslims are in the world? There are 2 billion people who are Muslims in the world. You know, 2 billion. They are a quarter of the population of the planet. If this statement of this individual was actually true, and it was in the core teachings, in the core of the teachings of Islam, that you annihilate and then get rid of anyone who is quote unquote, as he says, an infidel, would you actually be alive today? I want you to think about that and sit down and simmer and think about that for a minute. Let alone if not the 2 billion people, but think about 1% of them. If 1% of the population of Muslims was actually, as this person is claiming, their core of their belief was teaching them to do this type of behavior, would you see one incident every how many years and highlighted by all the media by a 16-year-old boy? Is that what you're going to see? Or are you going to see this literally every day, if you're able to even see it, because you're not going to remain alive? This type of kind of rhetoric, it's been ridiculous, and it's been repeated for years, and it goes unchallenged. But when you just like investigate it, very simply, you see how ridiculous it is when you investigate it. But let's see what else he has to say.
Take a look at Catholics and Christians that are reaching out and trying to send missionaries into area to communicate the love of Jesus Christ and the healing power of Christ as a solution for the broken world, versus let's exterminate anyone else. And this precious man who went into Gaza, went on a mission trip there, touched the lives of people, goes back to his pulpit, and you have a radicalized youth that comes to him. And when I say radicalized, I also think about the UK researched thoroughly. Remember the subway bombings in the UK? And they researched it, and they found, what was that? I think it was 3 specific radical clerics that were in northern London, I believe it was, that had radicalized and incented to violence the people that planted those bombs that were on the London tubes.
Now, you see this individual here. He's trying to look, using an opportunity or using this tragic event that took place to try to say, oh, you know what? But in comparison, look at like, the lovely, loving, in his own words, Christians, Christian missionaries who go to whichever place they go to, and how the loving and kind they are. Now, the thing is this is always the tactic and the behavior of these types of Christians. They try and pretend as if their book is a book of flowers and love and hugs. And anyone who's got any brain cells, and he opened that book and actually read it, will know that this is just a ridiculous type of claim that has no relevancy to the reality. Now, of course, regardless of just looking at history, look at the Crusades and what they did, look at what happened in Hiroshima, the nuclear bomb that was sent, and then you got Bush saying, praise be to Jesus. And we can, if we want to ignore all of these examples, which are bad apples, as I mentioned, which exist in every community, we look at the text. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide actual text from his book. Not what he does. He just makes claims and no one calls him out on it because he's not providing any text. In this case, I'm going to actually provide certain text. So if this book, as a loving book, as he's claiming it to be, open 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3, and see. Where you got Samuel and Saul, and you got the Lord God himself, which is Jesus in their belief. Even though this is the Old Testament, they believe in the Trinity. And in the Old Testament, if God is a Trinity, then Jesus is also God. And he's the one who's given this command. So don't pretend as if the Old Testament did not exist. And if you want to say now you have a New Testament, so it was moral back then to do this, but it's not moral today to do it. Is that what you're trying to say? Do you pick when something is moral and something is not moral? So if you read, it says that the Lord is given a command because the Amalekites took the Jewish people out of Egypt 400 years before this incident. Now the Lord is saying, go smite and kill all of them, kill their women, their children, the donkeys, the cattle, the sheep, all of that. These are the biblical teachings. Now go find me, where does the Quran teach anywhere to kill a child? And I was just speaking in the beginning of this video how the Prophet explicitly forbade that in war. Now I'm giving you an explicit verse that says the opposite to that. And it's in the Bible. If you want to even look at the New Testament, you want to read the New Testament, says what it says. You see, there's a parable that Jesus gives, or what you want to call a parable, metaphor, whatever you want to give it. And when he comes on his second coming, and then he makes everyone his footstool. Now, certain people tell you this is metaphorical. It's not, metaphor for what? What is he trying to say? When he comes and he makes everyone his footstool, is that what? Is that hugs, or what is going to take place? So when you talk about these kind of flowery type of things, anyone who opens the book and actually reads and says what the text is actually saying, he will realize very easily and very quickly that you are misrepresenting your own text and trying to pretend as if this is a very flowery, loving kind of teachings when it's not. And if you were to actually compare it with the Quran, you'd actually see the massive difference in the teachings when it comes to war and dealings of violence, etc. Now let's see what also they have to say.
Right, all you guys are talking shit out there, mind you. And again, I have no kids. I'm obviously on the market. Obviously, I'm trying to do my thing. But once I start having them, I'm not gonna just have one. I'm gonna go for the gusto. You know what I mean? These guys, that guy's
God willing,
open in your face and telling you what the hell the plan is. That's the plan. I'm happy that the reporter's shocked.
Now look. Honestly, I don't know what to say anymore. Like he comes and he says, this is the plan. These people, and honestly, this is the case. These people, what they do is that they think Muslims, they congregate in the masjid, in the mosque, in the place of prayer, and they sit down and you know what? How many kids did you have today? 12, 20, 22, 23? How many kids did you have today? 20, that's not enough. You need to increase because, our plan of world domination. I don't know what kind of ridiculous world these people are living in. They're trying to apply that that's the plan. If Muslims, like, this is a funny thing. If Muslims were actually, as you're trying to show in this video, were actually a group of people who are planning together and sitting down, and they would have already had domination, because there are 2 billion people. Fact is, every lay Muslim is busy with his own thing. Certain even Muslims who disagree with each other, bicker with each other, let alone them sitting down together, making a world class plan of having children. What a ridiculous kind of, honestly, when a Muslim sees this, he thinks, how comes these guys are allowed to kind of talk on massive platforms like this? Are these supposed to be the intellectuals of the time? And here I'm offering a discussion to any of these people, especially that guy who's talking about Christianity and pretending Islam, this is the foundation of Islam. Why don't you come then? Why don't you have a discussion with me? Come have a discussion with me, and then show me a representation, show me the text in Islam which actually supports what you just claimed. And you're not going to be able to do that, and you're going to hide. And this is what will happen, because people like you, when they're put on the stand, when they're face-to-face encounters, when I'm speaking to you face-to-face and I'm challenging you on your claims, you're not going to be able to go to imadeitup.com like your friend the Zionist. You're not going to be able to do that. And this is why you can watch, if you've not seen my videos before, you can welcome to watch my channel. When people come, make up ridiculous claims about Islam says this, Islam says that, whenever they challenge it, it's always the same thing. They're not able to present evidences to demonstrate that this is the case, or that this is what Islam teaches. And in the end, for any fair-minded individuals, like, you'll see me like kind of passionate when I'm talking about this event and these people, because I'm frustrated first by the event, this tragic event that took place. I'm more frustrated by people who are like this, who misuse the event and try to paint it on people like me or other Muslims as if this is our behavior and this is what we do, etc. Well, while in the end, that could not be anywhere close to the truth. So I hope people can actually open their minds a bit more and actually do an investigation. Actually, is that actually what Muslims believe? Rather than just listening to a random guy, imadeitup.com, go and pick up a copy of the Quran, actually read it for yourself. If it's teaching what this guy is telling you is teaching, then you can say, okay, yeah, this guy is right, and actually I should be wary of these Muslims because this is what their book's teaching. But if he's just imadeitup.com stats, then know that these people are not reliable for you to take as an authority and take information from. And I hope Allah Azza wa Jal guides everyone, guide us all. I hope Muslims as well take this as a lesson, that we'll have to struggle. We'll have to always take blame for things we didn't do. We'll have to come and clarify and condemn. Even I live in a completely different country. I've never met this person or heard about him in my life, but I have to condemn it, because Muslims are, they have a different standard when it comes to dealing with them. Whether it's the media or general people, they have a different standard, and we have to act in a certain way. Because this is life, we're targeted, and we have to behave in a way to justify and respond to things that we didn't do. And may Allah Azza wa Jal guide everyone. And I'll leave you guys here, inshallah. I'll see you in the next video.